Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Cara. If you are new here, welcome. My channel, as you can see, is Lancaster, PA Homes, and today we are going to be talking about all of the things that you probably should consider if you are thinking of purchasing a home. So I'm based here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but this is applicable no matter where you are. So let's get right to it. Number one is, how noisy is the neighborhood? So let's say you're coming from a place like New York City or DC or Boston, someplace like that, and you're used to all that noise and being close to people and you like that. Well, Lancaster might seem pretty quiet to you. But if you're coming from a place like upstate New York or rural Pennsylvania or rural Virginia or someplace like that, Lancaster probably will seem more noisy and more crowded. So those are just some things to consider depending on what part of town you want to live in. So let's say you want to live in the city, for example. You might think, well, there's going to be good insulation, or if not, I'll add some and I won't be able to hear my neighbors. It's okay. Well, that might be true for the walls, but if you think of the front of the home, there's going to be, likely a sidewalk outside your front door and your front windows. You might hear people walking by or parking or talking and doing various things that people do in a city. So you want to figure out, is that going to bother you in any way? If you're living in a more rural area, you probably won't really have to worry about noise so much unless you're close to like a highway or an interstate, but just some things to consider there as well. Number two is, how old is the home? So here in Lancaster, we have homes dating back even as far as the 1700s if you find some really old stone farmhouses. Some also in the 1800s. I would say the majority is early 1900s or newer. So a lot of your city homes are going to be like 1900, 1925, that kind of a range. And something to consider with that type of a home, if that's what you want, if you like that historic charm, is, has the electrical been updated? Is there still knob and tube wiring, which is an older electrical system that was common decades ago? Have a general contractor or an inspector take a look at that for you. Are the windows older? How's your insulation going to be? If the windows are just single paned, you might be pretty cold in the winter time, or your heating bill will be really high. So just some things to consider. If you want an older home, there's nothing wrong with that, but you just kind of have to know what you're getting into first. Number three is this home move-in ready? So depending on where you're coming from, let's say you're living in a place where you're on a month-to-month rental, or you're living with family and you're able to wait a little bit between purchasing the home and moving into it, then this might not matter so much to you. But if you have a home to sell previously and you're planning to move straight into this house, you're going to want it to be move-in ready unless you have family to live with or some sort of temporary rental lined up. So, you might have things to do like painting and redoing the carpets or flooring and things like that. That might not be as big of a job, but if you want to redo your kitchen or your bathroom or something like that, and it's going to take a couple months or however long, you're going to want to, of course, think about that before moving in. So figure out if you want to move right in, if you want it to be move-in ready, or if you want a big project. Number four is, how old are the various systems in the home? So I say systems, but I'm also thinking, so like AC, if you have central AC, is your, how old is your gas furnace or your oil burner, your water heater, things like that. But also you want to think about, how old are the windows? How old is the roof? Those kind of things, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, might not be the first thing on your mind. So you're probably going to go into a home and think, wow, I love, the way they have this set up. I love the layout, the size of the rooms are good, the kitchen's updated or not updated. And you're going to be looking at those more aesthetic things. You're probably not going to walk right into the first home you've ever looked at to purchase and think, let me check the water heater. How old is that furnace? Things like that. You're probably not really going to think about that, but they're very important. And an inspector can help you figure out, how old it is if the seller's not sure, and they can also give you an idea of the condition. So you don't want to be moving into a home, especially your first home, and then a month after moving in, let's say you move in the wintertime, your furnace breaks, and now you're out thousands of dollars. You don't want to be in that situation. So definitely consider those bigger cost items and checking on their condition. Number 5 is pretty similar to number 4. I would say it's related, but it's not exactly the same. So number 5 is, have your systems been annually maintained? So every system doesn't necessarily need annual maintenance, but let's say your water heater, for example, the seller says, oh, I just replaced that 3 or 4 years ago. They tend to last roughly 10 years or so, give or take. And they say, oh yeah, it's only 3 or 4 years old. It's not that bad. But they haven't had it looked at or serviced in any way since purchasing it. It might not last those full 10 years. It, in all likelihood, probably won't. Maybe it'll last 7 or 8. I don't know. Of course, it depends on the exact system. But think about it this way. Think about if you purchased a new car and you didn't get an oil change for 3 or 4 years. Your car probably wouldn't be running so well. That's something to consider when purchasing a home is, okay, maybe it's a newer system, but if it hasn't been maintained, it might not be acting like a newer system. Number 6 is, how is the drainage outside? So you might think that's kind of a weird thing to think about, but a lot of homes here in Pennsylvania have basements. I would say the vast majority of homes here in Pennsylvania do have basements. And when you're walking around the perimeter of the house, you want to know, how is the land graded and sloped? So if you have land, I mean naturally, if you have land angled toward your home, then water, whenever it rains, is going to pool up toward your home and then seep potentially into your basement and cause water intrusion, which you definitely don't want. Can lead to, a wet basement, mold, all that kind of stuff. Especially if you have like a big hill in your backyard that's aimed right towards your house. That's not going to be a good situation if you don't have a plan in place to divert that water. Number 7 is, how do the schools rank? So this might not be something that's particularly applicable today with everyone or most people doing online learning, but you still want to know what school district your kid's going to be in if you have kids currently or if you're planning to in the future. I always recommend, if you have friends or family in the area, talk to them. Go to the schools, visit them, talk to the people that work there, see what the schools are like, look up ratings online, all that kind of stuff. Get a feel for which school district you feel like your family might fit best in. Number 8 is kind of a big one, and it can be honestly a whole other video topic, but I'll just give you a little tidbit today, is how much home can you afford? Of course, this is a big question, and if you are local to Lancaster, I can recommend some local lenders that you can talk to give you a better idea of this. Just send me an email, call me or text me. I'll leave my contact info below, and I can share my contacts with you. But if you're paying $1,100, $1,200 a month in rent and you just want to spend a little bit more than that or the same, or whatever your situation is, a lender is going to be able to look at your payment history, look at your income, your debts, all that kind of stuff, and tell you what price you can afford and what the amount is, what the maximum amount is that they can lend you. And that's really going to be the first step when purchasing a home, is figuring out what you can even afford. And there are various things that play into that as well, not just thinking on the purchase price of the house, but the taxes. Depending on where you are, you can look at a $250,000 house where the taxes are $2,000, or you can look at a $250,000 house where the taxes are $6,000, depending on which township you're in. So those are things to consider as well. Number 9 is, how much are the utilities? So around here, the typical heat sources are natural gas, oil, and electric. There are pros and cons of each one, of course, but oil tends to be pretty expensive and people tend to kind of shy away from it, but it is still pretty common around here. But something that you can check with the seller or listing agent on, if you are working with a realtor, just ask them to gather this info. How much is the seller paying for heat, for AC, any of those types of things, and then you can get an idea of compare it to what you're paying now and say, am I gonna have to pay much more? Is it gonna be the same? Is it gonna be less? And that kind of helps you budget too. And that fits into the last point of what you can afford. All right, and number 10, something that you may have thought of already is how far is this home from your work? Which again, nowadays it's kind of silly because a lot of people are working from home, but I wanted to include another piece in here. So not just your work, but what about the places where you visit frequently, like restaurants, friends' houses, parks, anything like that? How far is this home from there? So if you are you know, comfortable with driving a little bit more, then you might not mind being too far from them. But some people like to be practically walking distance from those places. So just figuring out what your comfort level is and what you are looking for. But yeah, those are my 10 tips on what you should consider when purchasing a home. I really hope that you found this helpful in some way. If you did, hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I really look forward to seeing you in the next one. See ya. Hey everybody, I'm Cara. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And hey everybody. Hey everybody, my name is Cara, and today we are going to be talking, Okay, so this, since a lot of people are doing online learning and everything. My battery again. Anyway.